comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, I say it's alright.
Energy from the sun. It's safe, clean, plentiful in most parts, but is it practical and economical? And what is meant by the term solar energy? Panels like these that heat water? This is one important part of the solar energy industry, but it is not the most exciting. Solar energy also refers to a process that converts sunlight to electricity with the use of photovoltaic cells.
What does occur is actually so simple. There are no moving parts, there's no smoke, there's no mechanical interface of any kind between some other machine. It's simply a quiet little event that occurs in a space no bigger than the human hair.
Christopher Swan is the author of the recently published book, Sun Cell, Energy, Economy, and Photovoltaics. To explain how photovoltaics work, he compares the process to photosynthesis.
A leaf acts as a single collector of solar energy in a small chemical factory that transforms the nutrients as well as the light energy into energy that the tree survives on. Similarly, photovoltaic cells are small disks that pick up the light directly and as a result of that transform that light into electricity.
Ron Kennedy from the Independent Power Company in the Sierra Foothills sells photovoltaic systems that electrify homes and cells which power various consumer products.
The market is varied. It goes from the folks who live a quarter of a mile from power or more for the home systems to the average consumer who wants to have a watch that he doesn't have to put a battery in, or a clock that runs off of the light inside of a house, or a person who lives in an RV or travels in an RV that wants to have power without hookups or running a noisy generator.
Due to the high cost of running power lines to secluded cabins and homes, many homeowners are making the investment in photovoltaics. The Peaches are modern-day homesteaders who moved to the Nevada City area from suburban Southern California. The utility company in the area estimated it would cost them $55,000 to run a couple miles of electric line out to their home. Instead, they opted to invest $12,000 in a photovoltaic system.
I think our lifestyle hasn't really changed that much at all. We kind of set ourselves up for doing this, so we knew there were certain things that we weren't going to have the luxury of, or they were basically things we never really used anyways, but, microwaves or things like that, which I suppose you could use if you had enough panels on your roof. I'm not really sure. But I think that the hardest adjustment has been adjusting to the fact that life hasn't changed that much. That it's pretty much the same as it was. There's something about this whole independent power situation where you really kind of get hooked on it. I started out with a small system, and one thing led to another, and you just ended up with bigger. And it goes into everything with the water system and all things. You just get into a mode of thinking and want to have everything as simple and independent as possible, and it's very addictive.
One of the selling points of the photovoltaic technology is its reliability. It is perfectly suited for rugged, isolated areas where small amounts of energy are needed.
Photovoltaics is ultimately reliable. They now carry 10-year warranties and UL listings. They use them in remote settings for telecommunications where people only go to maybe once a year. They also use them for weather data gathering in the Arctic, where somebody will go once a year and pick up the information, and the panels will be totally covered with snow and ice, and when they thaw, they'll be working. They have a rated life of 25 to 40 years by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Remote areas are not the only places where photovoltaic cells are used. Ron explains why homeowners in cities and suburbs are equipping their homes with the cells.
There are ways to use it in the city that make sense right now. There's a lifeline rate that you can stay on from your utility companies that keep you in a lower rate for your power usage. And by using a small solar system, you can keep within that rate and cut your power bills way down.
A handful of utility companies around the country are experimenting with centralized electricity production from photovoltaic cells. In the shadow of the Rancho Seco nuclear plant, these panels produce electricity for 600 to 800 homes. Plans for this solar farm call for it to be expanded to produce 50 times the electricity that it currently produces, but further growth has been postponed while the utility waits for the price of photovoltaic cells to drop. Cost is the major stumbling block in the widespread commercial use of photovoltaics. Electricity produced by photovoltaic cells is 2 to 2.5 times more expensive than conventional energy.
There are many areas of the country where nuclear power plants are about to come online, which will cause an increase in the utility cost per customer on the order of 20, 30, 40% in some cases. Now, as that happens, that will make photovoltaic technology more competitive in more areas of the country, and it will lead to the possibility of a greater number of people in houses that are 100% solar powered, that is heated and electrified entirely by the sun they receive every day right where they are.
Most people are more comfortable paying a monthly utility bill than going out and investing a lot of money in a system that they'll use for 25 years. I think that kind of an attitude is changing as power prices go up and people start understanding the real predicament the world's in terms of nuclear power and fossil fuels.
The United States is in the forefront of developing photovoltaic technology, but we are in danger of losing this lead to the Japanese. The solar energy industry receives from the government only a fraction of the money that the nuclear industry receives for research and development. Chris comments on the role the federal government is playing.
While it is attempting to support the industry to some extent, it's also taking a very hard-line free enterprise position and assuming that the companies can do the research on their own, and it's now, to a great extent, privatized. And I think that would be true and fine, and there would be no problem with that if it were not for the fact that many governments around the world, particularly the Japanese, simply don't look at things that way. So we are competing with people who are subsidizing the technology and its development to a much greater degree than we are, and it leads to simply unfair world competition. So we're at a disadvantage.
For visionaries like Chris, the solar energy industry has a promising future. He predicts the growth that will occur in the next 10 to 15 years.
By 1995, the year 2000, I suspect we will see an explosion in the development of the technology worldwide that will make the computer industry and what we saw in the early 70s look like child's play. So probably in the early part of the next century, it will become so widespread it will be taken for granted.